Il nuovo episodio dello show di Julian Assange si incentra su un dialogo a tre. Il fondatore di Wikileaks interpella due protagonisti di punta dei moti rivoluzionari che stanno scuotendo ormai da un anno l'Egitto e il Bahrain. Si tratta dell'egiziano Alaa Abd El-Fattah e dell'eminente attivista per i diritti umani Nabeel Rajab, che è stato arrestato sabato scorso proprio a ridosso della messa in onda di questa intervista con il fondatore di Wikileaks. Assange cerca di andare al cuore di queste rivoluzioni attraverso le testimonianze di chi li combatte sul campo, rischiando di essere arrestato, pestato e torturato. Usa anche una serie di cablo della diplomazia che la sua organizzazione ha pubblicato per cercare di fare luce su questi regimi prima che esplodessero le rivolte popolari che stanno cercando di abbatterli. L'interesse di Julian Assange per queste vicende è facilmente comprensibile. Wikileaks è stata fondata con uno scopo preciso, quello di utilizzare la tecnologia per fornire uno strumento alle gole profonde e ai dissidenti che vogliano denunciare crimini e gravissime violazioni di diritti umani che sono coperte da aziende corrotte e stati repressivi che usano e abusano del segreto di Stato, usano la censura o le minacce di tipo legale e anche fisico. Nella concezione politica di Julian Assange, la battaglia campale non è quella tra gli Stati, ma tra l'individuo e le istituzioni repressive. Da qui il suo interesse per la rivoluzione araba e in generale per tutte le rivoluzioni.
I'm Julian Assange.
Roger, I'll get you into straight.
Editor of WikiLeaks. We've exposed the world's secrets.
These documents belong to the United States government.
Been attacked by the powerful.
The United States strongly condemned.
Hey, quit asking questions.
We broke the law. Illegally shoot the son of a...
For 500 days now, I've been detained without charge. But that hasn't stopped us.
Mike Beck.
Today, we're on a quest for revolutionary ideas that can change the world tomorrow. Is the Arab Spring the enactment of a dream, or is it an impossible fantasy? This week, I cut through the spin and speak directly to two leading revolutionaries. From Cairo, I speak to writer and activist Alaa Abd El-Fattah. Imprisoned and now banned from travel, he has become the icon of a revolution betrayed. Joining me under house arrest is Nabeel Rajab, the director of the Bahrain Center for Human Rights and one of the most important figures in the Bahraini uprising. I want to ask them about the revolutions across the Middle East. Have they been successful, crushed, captured, or concealed? And what motivates them to continue to put their lives on the line? Alaa.
Hello.
You see me? And we have here Nabeel from Bahrain.
Hey. كيفك, man?
We were worried about you.
Very good to see you. Yeah.
Yeah, he is out now, but not for long. And
Yeah. None of us are out for long, eh?
maybe not. So what happened in the past couple of weeks when we called you to try and get you over here?
I mean,
you were in jail, so.
Well, I mean, yeah, I was just detained for almost half day, and then before that, a month, I was beaten up in the street. A few months ago, I was kidnapped from my home by masked security persons and taken to an unknown place after blindfolded and handcuffed, and I was tortured. Then I was thrown back home. When I said in my Twitter account that I'm going to meet Julian Assange and I'm going to speak to him in a TV program, and last night my house was surrounded by almost 100 policemen, armed machine guns, and they realized then I was not at home. Then they just asked my family to tell me to come to the public prosecutor today at 4 o'clock, where I am here.
So you were here today
I was
at
here,
4
and
o'clock.
I received that when I was last night, and I think but I'm used.
What are you going to do?
I'm gonna go back. I mean, I have to face it. You know, I mean, it's not the first time. It's not, I mean, but this is the struggle. This is the freedom. This is democracy that we are fighting for. It has a cost, and that we have to pay the cost, and the cost might be very expensive, as we have paid high costs in Bahrain, and we're willing to pay that for the changes that we are fighting for.
And Alaa, where are you at legally? Are you in the clear now?
No. I am still pending prosecution. The case is under investigation. I am banned from travel, and I am accused of murder, sabotage of public property, namely military APCs, stealing military weapons, inciting illegal assembly for the purpose of terrorism. So I'm basically accused of beating the hell out of a couple of platoons, stealing their weapons, and then killing one.
You're alleged to be a very naughty boy.
Yeah, and a Superman also. I'm capable of doing stuff that would be impossible for confronting APCs on my own and so on. And I have witnesses that the prosecution witnesses have testified to me being in two places at the same time, yet I'm still being investigated. So I'm obviously capable of way more, many superpowers, but which is pretty awesome. I had a good reputation and street cred in prison. People go to prison because they steal cars, but I'm being accused of stealing tanks.
How do you think you will go?
I don't know if they're particularly interested in me, or just the idea that they want to use courts as a tool against activists and as a legitimate tool. It's not enough to be able to beat the hell out of them. It's not enough to be able to kill people. In fact, even when they do targeted killings, like we think they're targeted killings, they're targeting people who are very crucial on the ground but are not well known. So they are stuck with this, with the famous activist dilemma. What do you do about them? And I think they're trying to build the legitimacy for using the courts against us, and it keeps backfiring. But they're biding their time. So that's why the case is still on, and that's why I'm still accused. Maybe they'll eventually manage to tarnish my image enough, and they are working on it. I'm being accused of holding pro-gay views, for instance, and which again, good street cred.
What's the current status? What's the state of play in Bahrain right now?
I would say there are three different status. In Tunisia, complete revolution, complete overthrow of the regime, complete new system. Well,
it's not
then you have Egypt,
in Tunisia at all.
Then you have in Egypt, which is halfway revolution, not yet completed, army and the system and the regime still exist. Then you have in Bahrain, revolution still exists and working and did not yet achieve anything, but the revolution is still in a process. They're still continuing. After a year, many people were killed in terms of percentage, much more than people lost in Tunisia and Egypt. Unfortunately, we are in a region ruled by families, dictators, since 10th of a couple of hundred of years. But their strength comes from the wealth, from the American support, from the armies they have, and from no legitimacy from people. No legitimacy from people. But those are realities that they're ruling us, and we can't change them because nobody wants to talk about them.
Alaa, what's the present state of play in Egypt now?
Well, basically, the 18 days thing was quite surprising. That the Mubarak would fall that quickly. The price was high, but we thought it would be much higher, and so on. So what's happening in Egypt is that what we expected should happen. We would all have expected that a revolution in Egypt is something that would stretch over a year, maybe. So that year that didn't happen with Mubarak is happening with the military. And people, after an initial moment of thinking, that the military might just decide to retain its unity and status by not engaging and not protecting the regime, is actually the military is the core of the regime. So the revolution now is a revolution against military rule.
The revolutionary groups in Bahrain and the people who supported these protest movements in Bahrain, have they been wound up? Are they too scared to act? Are they fractured? Are they apathetic? Who's left? Who's still pushing forward?
Well, still a lot of people. You have. I wouldn't be surprised, or you should not be surprised to see half of the Bahraini population coming out in one protest. It's still happening. It's not happening in any of the revolution. None of the revolution we had in the history in the past 50 years, you would see 50% of the population out in the street in one protest, but you will see in Bahrain. Unfortunately, because of the double standard of many countries, because of the double standard of many state channels like Al Jazeera, like Al Arabiya, like other European and channels, that they don't highlight this. But this is the reality.
Why doesn't Al Jazeera...
Al Jazeera were positive in Egypt, they were positive in Tunisia. In fact, Al Jazeera were assigned for any revolution in the Arab world, if it is a credible revolution or not. If Al Jazeera will cover those revolution, means credible. But when it comes to Bahrain, Al Jazeera were quiet. I'm talking about the Arabic Al Jazeera, not the English.
Yeah.
English completely different.
English was all right, wasn't it?
It's still certain limit they were okay. The Arabic one, they were complete silence. In fact, in many areas, they taken the side of the government.
Why?
Why? Because they rule from a similar ruling family and a similar region. A democracy in Bahrain means it's going to have an impact on Qatar. It's going to have an impact on Saudi Arabia, which has the Al Arabiya TV channel.
So why did Saudi send troops into Bahrain?
And this is something the whole world has to speak out and have to condemn what happened. But we've seen the invasion of Saudis to my country with complete silence. Now the same government sending troops to Libya to fight the regime, and now they are against the Syrian Assad, which they have to be maybe. But when it comes to Bahrain, they were complete silence. With Saudis in the troops.
Were they scared of the activist Shia in Bahrain spreading into Saudi?
No, because the Saudis are very influential in the United States, in Europe. They have, for the interests of United States, for the interest of the many European countries, for the arms sale, for the flow of the oil, for their mutual interest, which many countries have seen it has more priority than the human right of the Bahrainis. For example, the same United States, which asked Russia not to sell arms for Syria, they are selling arms to Bahrain. Yesterday, a statement by the American representative in the Human Rights Council, saying that we will not talk about Bahrain this session, because Bahrain is improving itself and they're doing better. Where people, as I'm talking to you, a few hours ago, one man died because of tear gas. We have a daily basis, people are dying.
Is Iran fueling the revolutionary forces?
This is what our government's saying. This is what the Americans maybe try to buy that, but that got none of the revolutionary group.
Did you? I read a cable at the time of these Bahraini protests about 8 months ago, and this US cable, which we have published, says that the Bahraini government officers came into the US embassy and they said, look, Iran is behind these calls for human rights in Bahrain. It is funneling money and weapons into the Bahrainian resistance. And then the US ambassador, writing back to Washington, said that he saw no evidence that was true. That they keep claiming this.
At least one
cable.
claiming
this, but over years they had never seen any evidence.
Similar to that, at least one cable that was about me, where one of the government agents go to the American embassy, says that Nabeel Rajab is receiving fund from the Iranian government. Then the Americans tell the State Department that's not true. They've got nothing to support that.
Do you think this fear-mongering about Iran is it the primary reason why the West is not supporting?
I'm sure they want Bahrain stable as the fifth fleet base on Bahrain. They want Bahrain to be very quiet and stable. Losing Ben Ali in Tunisia, losing Mubarak in Egypt, angered the Saudis very much. You know that there was a telephone call where they had a fight, the Saudi king with the Obama. And when it comes to Bahrain, this is the last thing the Saudis want to see. A revolution on Bahrain, few miles from their border, which means going to have impact next day in Saudi Arabia. That's why Saudi sent the troops to Bahrain to take part in the crackdown, in killing people, detaining people, and they've taken part in that bloody crackdown with the complete silence from the international community. Yes, Saudi, they don't want democracy. Yes, Qatar, which want to promote democracy in Syria and other part of the world, but they don't want democracy in Qatar. And you have to ask your people, you have to share power, you have to share wealth. And those governments will not accept that to happen.
Alaa, you may remember during the heat of the Egyptian revolution, Suleiman, the head of domestic intelligence in Egypt, was proposed by Joseph Biden, by the State Department, by Hillary Clinton, to be a sort of replacement figure for Mubarak, a compromise figure. And we released many cables about him and his position in relation to Israel and relation to the United States, and being a sort of a torturer in chief. But very quickly after it was apparent that Suleiman was not going to succeed, you saw Hillary Clinton turn around and start to praise the Egyptian revolution and say that, in fact, the Egyptian and Tunis revolutions were because of two great American companies, Twitter and Facebook. and you must have heard this time and time again.
We have to realize that there's a battle for narrative in the revolutions. The revolutions are about ideas as much as they are about, bodies in the streets and bullets and so on. And the most crucial aspect of this battle of narrative is to try and narrow down the revolution to being about the Facebook youth. That doesn't mean that the Facebook youth did not play an important role in the revolution. They did. But the thing is, if you draw a circle around, a side of the revolution and say, this is the true revolution, everybody else is not for real, and then you play on everything. You play on class. You play on how much people are willing to use violence to defend themselves, to isolate revolutionary forces from each other. So the well-off, middle-class, highly educated, internet-connected youth played an important role in the revolution, and they were, for very tactical reasons, they were the symbols of the revolution, because you needed the whole world to love the Egyptian revolution. So you also had this great Woodstock-like party in Tahrir without the drugs and the sex, but you had this wonderful, amazing and very inspiring. It's also very real. There's no aspect of of fantasy about it. Party in Tahrir Square. But if you tell the story, that's why it's about narrative. If you tell the story of the Egyptian revolution as these wonderful kids, good-looking, well-connected kids being in Tahrir, then you're ignoring the workers, you're ignoring the street battles, you're ignoring how much we had to use violence in defense. We were not sticking to the script that people outside of the revolution think that it was going on. So Hillary was not just pushing two American companies. She was pushing a narrative that is designed to stop the revolution, to make sure that it doesn't go deeper than Mubarak.
Alaa, you wrote, the square is a legend that would fall if the families of martyrs stopped to believe in it. The dream is the alternative to the regime. If we let go of it for realistic, rational and committed debates that follow the right order of priorities, it would perish. Leave the experts behind and listen to the poets, for we are in a revolution. Let go of the mind and hold on to the dream, for we are in a revolution. Before the caution and embrace of the unknown, for we are in a revolution. Celebrate the martyrs, for amidst ideas, symbols, stories, spectacles and dreams, nothing is real but their blood, and nothing is guaranteed but their eternity. That part of the revolution in Egypt has now finished, the square. But is the dream finished?
There is no articulation of what that dream is. It's certainly not a boring Western representative democracy where your nation could go on a war like the UK went without the consent of the populace, where electing the president who promised hope is almost exactly the same as electing the president who didn't promise hope, as happened in the US. The dream is what makes your work unnecessary, Julian. The dream is what makes is a democracy that doesn't give rise to Occupy Wall Street and Occupy London and the Greek riots and so on. But it's still very strong, and it still lives there. But it is not. It has not been articulated. We don't have a theory. We don't have yet. So the dream, you see it in moments when you can become poetic, like I managed to do in that article, the dream you see in the graffiti, and that's why it's been very much tied to the martyrs. I mean, we don't just treat them as people who died; they are immortal, and it is not in their sacrifice, but it is in how we see their sacrifice and how we re-express their sacrifice and how we keep their memory living, that we touch what the dream is. But I cannot tell you what it is exactly. And it is in moments of battles, actually, that I almost can touch it. Like when we are battling the police, there are always these moments of ceasefire that don't last for very long. I think they're usually the police are refilling their ammunition and so on. And when the police stops firing, we stop automatically. But in these moments, you know, you find that people have formed circles. You've got fires all over the place because there's, you know, fires, you know, people have been using Molotov cocktails or something like that. So these fires become actually like a bonfire. People are sitting around it. Tea, suddenly, you know, street merchants come up out of the blue and, you know, the people are drinking tea and singing together. And so there is a postmodern state that we are trying to reach, and we don't know what it is exactly. But this is why we're having a revolution and not just an orderly reform. And this is why it doesn't actually matter what the US government wants and what Al Jazeera is doing and so on, because it's about something that's much deeper. And I don't know if we're going to win it this time, and I don't know if we're going to win it in my lifetime. But it's enough that I you know, on an almost weekly basis, that I get moments where I can almost touch it.
Nabeel?
I think in the end of 2010, with the Abu Azizi wave have started, tsunami, and I think it's going to change the whole region. Maybe in very few years, the whole region going to change. Those smart government in the region, which going to reform themselves fast, and those government who will resist changes, I think the tsunami will remove them from their seats. Those government in United States or European government who build their relation, who build their interest, long strategic interest with those dictators, I think they're going to lose a lot. Those government who are smart enough to have a relation with the people rather than those dictators, I think those will benefit. Changes, I'm very optimistic that changes are going to happen in our region, positive changes.
In these moments, whether you're in prison or you're in a situation of being held and kidnapped and beaten, when you have the maximum isolation, you do not have control of your physical space, you don't have control of your body, someone else has your body, and you are not at liberty in the most fundamental sense of the word. What do you think about, and how do you try and control your feelings to see you through this moment?
I think if you have a goal, if you believe in the just of your goal, of your struggle, you will overcome those difficulties. And you know that changes that you're fighting for, it's been there for hundreds of years. It's not an easy thing to change. So to achieve those changes, you have to be willing to pay a price. And that price might be your life. And I'm sure those people heading the movement in the Arab world are that type of people who are willing to pay their life to achieve those changes.
Yeah, prison sucks, man. And this is my second time to go to prison, and my fight was this time that I was facing a military prosecutor, and I refused to recognize the legitimacy of the military justice system, and so I was sent. Eventually, we managed to win this major victory, and I was sent to a proper magistrate, and then he still kept me in detention, and so there was this moment where I was completely collapsing. And I really wanted to be out and attend the birth of my first son. And I couldn't because of that. And so I collapsed, and then he was born. And 3 hours later, my family managed to send me photos of him. And it didn't matter. At that moment, it just didn't matter at all. And so it's always been it's always been the experience of being surrounded by love on a very personal level, but also in the solidarity, you know. I've been privileged and lucky enough that when I go to prison, there's a massive solidarity everywhere in the world, and it's usually of a very personal fashion.
Did you know the support that you had on the outside when you were on the inside?
Yes, mostly through family visits. So it isn't isolation that I wouldn't be able to handle, and it isn't being put with dangerous criminals in a very crowded cell that I wouldn't be able to handle. But if I was prevented from visits, then I don't know how I'd be able to handle that. And that's, yeah. Don't tell them.
Nabeel, you're a father of two.
I have two, yeah.
You're a father of two. Will you tell your children to grow up to be an activist like you and be kidnapped and put in prison, be beaten up?
You don't have to tell them. It's just by default, it's going to happen. And
but they'll learn by example.
Yeah, I mean, my son and my daughter now, head of each protest. I just moved them from school because they were harassed in this same school from the children of member of the ruling family, and they are paying high price, or maybe higher than me, because I'm doing my fight and struggle, and I'm ready for the reaction. But they started growing up seeing reaction for reason they don't know why. Being their house being raided at midnight, their father has been removed from bed and beaten in front of their eyes. Their house has been tear gassed maybe more than 20 times in the past 1 year. They've seen things normal children they did not see in their life. But they have learned a lot. They are much older than their age.
How old are they?
My daughter, she's 9 years old, and my son just become 14 years of age. I mean, he used to take part with me in each and every protest since he was 5 years old. And so my daughter, she never liked human rights and politics or nothing like that. But since I was kidnapped and beaten in front of her, she become a radical now, an activist. And my wife also, she's very quiet woman, but she's an activist. I think the whole family become activists. We are almost more than 1,000 members.
The whole clan.
Yeah, the family. And I mean, I think many of them become activists now. The whole nation, the revolution have made the whole nation activist. Imagine Bahrain government stopped journalists to get into the country, stopped the human rights organization to get into the country. But most of the people, young people, become journalists, become human rights activists, become bloggers, becomes internet.
There's a market opportunity
So
now.
thanks God, and government of Bahrain have made such a young movement, which is, I think, we're going to benefit, and the whole Arab world will benefit from them and their own revolution as well.
Alaa, your son is going to grow up into the new Egypt.
I had this thought that, like, now I need to bring up my son to hate football in order for him to avoid being killed. And then I remembered I named him after Khalid Saeed, who is a victim of police torture. He died the young man who died in Alexandria 2 years ago, prior to the revolution, but his face has been a symbol for the revolution. And he did nothing. There's no way I can protect him. There's no point in raising my son to avoid being an activist, or even to be pro-regime or anything like that, because it doesn't matter. When you have repression, the violence is so random that it's going to affect you anyway. The injustice is so random that it's going to affect you anyway. You cannot guarantee, a good life for your child unless you guarantee it for every other child. And so it's not in my hands. I can't even do anything about it.